Diddy once ruled the music world with unmatched influence and style, but as federal agents pulled back the curtain, jurors discovered a chilling reality behind the fame. With explicit evidence, secret recordings, and a key witness found dead, the trial took a dark and deadly turn no one saw coming. The arrest of Diddy in early 2025 sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. It wasn't just another celebrity scandal, it was something far deeper, more disturbing, and completely unexpected. Known for building an empire that included music, fashion, and alcohol brands, Diddy had always portrayed himself as a visionary and a mogul. But now, federal prosecutors were calling him something else entirely: a dangerous manipulator who had operated in the shadows for decades. The charges, which included racketeering, abuse, conspiracy, and witness intimidation, left the public stunned. What made the case even more gripping was the claim that several of these alleged crimes had been committed at the peak of his career, when the world saw him as untouchable. The indictment itself was over 90 pages long, detailing years of alleged misconduct that had remained hidden behind wealth and fame. Anonymous tips had led to the reopening of several cold cases, including disappearances and alleged assaults involving individuals who once worked closely with the music mogul. One former bodyguard, whose testimony helped build the case, said that working for Diddy felt like being part of a secret society where silence was bought and loyalty was demanded above all else. For years, rumors had floated around the entertainment industry, whispered in private circles or posted anonymously online, but no one ever thought it would lead to something like this. When the FBI finally acted, they didn't just make an arrest. They raided several of his properties simultaneously: his Los Angeles mansion, a Miami Beach house, a private jet hangar, and even his luxury recording studio. At each location, agents seized hard drives, surveillance systems, and financial records. What they found stunned even seasoned investigators. There were encrypted folders with names of individuals, detailed transaction logs, and a cache of digital files labeled with disturbing codes. Many of these files, prosecutors claimed, directly connected Diddy to illegal activities involving not just physical harm but also systematic efforts to cover everything up. As the story broke, the public reaction was swift. Some fans rushed to defend him, unable to accept the possibility that their icon might be guilty of such horrific things. Others demanded justice and called for a deeper investigation into the culture of silence that often protects the powerful in entertainment. The case became a media spectacle, dominating headlines, news cycles, and social media platforms. Legal experts predicted a long and complex trial ahead, with dozens of witnesses and mountains of digital evidence. What made the situation even more explosive was the fact that several of his closest business partners and former collaborators had already agreed to cooperate with authorities. While none had been formally charged yet, the court filings hinted that more indictments could follow. It was no longer just about one man. This trial was beginning to look like it could unravel a much larger network of power, secrecy, and control. The stage was set for one of the most dramatic courtroom battles the entertainment world had ever seen. The trial began under intense security and even more intense public scrutiny. Reporters from every major outlet packed the courthouse steps, while camera crews captured every moment outside. Inside the courtroom, 12 jurors sat in silence as the prosecution wasted no time presenting what they referred to as the vault, a sealed trove of digital evidence collected during the raids. The evidence included emails, text messages, surveillance footage, financial records, and encrypted audio files. It was a mountain of data, and the prosecution claimed it revealed a pattern of manipulation, coercion, and abuse hidden under the surface of luxury and celebrity. The jury was shown grainy video clips first. The footage was taken from inside one of Diddy's private properties, his Los Angeles estate. In one video, a woman appeared visibly distressed, being escorted from a room by 2 security guards. Another clip showed a heated confrontation between staff members, with one person being restrained. The prosecution argued these clips showed a consistent pattern. People were silenced, removed, or intimidated whenever they tried to speak out. The defense, however, pushed back, claiming the videos lacked context and that the events were private matters twisted to look criminal. Then came the audio recordings. These were more difficult to ignore. One of the most damning pieces was a conversation allegedly recorded by a former assistant who had hidden a device inside a guest room. In the clip, a voice resembling Diddy's could be heard discussing payoffs and directing someone to take care of a situation involving a former employee. The prosecution played it twice for clarity, and each time, the courtroom remained frozen. The defense objected, claiming the tape was manipulated, but the judge overruled, stating the jury could weigh its authenticity themselves. Next were the financial documents. Prosecutors revealed a web of offshore accounts and shell corporations used to move large sums of money. Payments labeled as consulting fees or bonuses were allegedly used to buy silence. Many of the recipients later declined to testify, even when subpoenaed, citing fear or invoking the Fifth Amendment. Investigators linked at least 6 payments to individuals who had accused Diddy of misconduct in civil suits over the years, cases that had been quickly settled and buried. The amounts were staggering, and the pattern was hard to ignore. More files followed: phone logs, emails with redacted names, contracts containing strict non-disclosure clauses. One email thread included detailed instructions on how to delete cloud storage backups and reset security systems. Prosecutors claimed it was clear proof of obstruction of justice. One folder recovered from a hidden drive was simply labeled Fire Exit. It contained flight itineraries, offshore bank access codes, and emergency contacts in various countries, suggesting plans for a sudden escape if things went wrong. By the end of the week, the prosecution had barely scratched the surface of their full evidence catalog. But already, jurors appeared visibly shaken. What began as a celebrity trial was now being seen as something much darker, a blueprint of power being used to control, silence, and erase the truth. As the trial entered its third week, the focus shifted from digital evidence to personal testimonies, and that's when the case took a more human, emotional turn. One by one, former employees, business associates, and collaborators stepped into the courtroom to share what they had witnessed over the years. The prosecution's goal was clear: to show that the incidents revealed in the vault weren't isolated, but part of a calculated system of intimidation and manipulation. The first major witness was a former executive assistant who had worked closely with Diddy for over 8 years. She described a work environment governed by fear. According to her, no one questioned orders, no matter how strange or morally uncomfortable they seemed. She recounted instances where she was ordered to deliver large envelopes to unknown locations, coordinate last-minute international flights for individuals in the middle of legal disputes, and even destroy cell phones that had been used during private events. Though she had no criminal record and had never spoken out before, she said the weight of what she had witnessed had haunted her for years. Her account was followed by a longtime music producer who had helped build Diddy's early success. At first, his career had soared under Diddy's mentorship, but over time, he began noticing things that disturbed him. He claimed to have seen people being threatened, artists being manipulated into signing contracts under pressure, and moments where complaints were followed by sudden disappearances from public view. He even described a private studio session where an artist tried to leave the label and was forcibly stopped by security. The event never made headlines, but the artist's career quickly fizzled out afterward. The producer admitted to being complicit by staying silent, but said he finally stepped forward because it was time to stop protecting a lie. One of the most unexpected testimonies came from a former security chief, a man known for his loyalty. He revealed an inner network referred to by staff as the Circle, a group of enforcers and insiders whose job was to ensure loyalty and manage any crisis before it reached the public. He described training sessions on surveillance techniques, handling aggressive situations discreetly, and protocols for removing devices from guests before parties. When asked if he ever saw anyone being harmed, he hesitated, then simply nodded. He said he couldn't speak freely due to an ongoing federal investigation into related matters, but his brief answers painted a chilling picture of the lengths taken to maintain control. These testimonies deeply impacted the jury. Their faces reflected growing unease as each story added another layer to the prosecution's narrative. The pattern became harder to ignore. While the defense continued to argue that the witnesses were disgruntled employees seeking revenge or attention, the consistency in their accounts told a different story. Each statement connected dots the jury had already seen in the digital evidence. The image of a charismatic mogul was dissolving fast, replaced by one of a man at the center of a web built to protect secrets at any cost. Just as the trial seemed to be moving steadily toward its conclusion, a chilling event changed everything. One of the government's key witnesses, a former house manager who had been with Diddy for nearly a decade, was found dead in a New York hotel room just 48 hours before his scheduled testimony. The initial report listed the cause of death as undetermined, but within days, the coroner's office officially ruled it a homicide. News of the death stunned the courtroom and cast a heavy shadow over the proceedings. This witness had been expected to provide critical insight into the most secretive areas of Diddy's private life, locations where no surveillance cameras existed and few outsiders were allowed. He had told federal investigators he kept a detailed journal, documenting everything from illegal activity to personal conversations overheard during closed-door meetings. That journal was never found. According to investigators, the man had been visibly anxious in the days leading up to his death and had requested federal protection, which had not yet been granted. The courtroom atmosphere turned tense. The judge issued an immediate gag order to prevent media leaks, but speculation surged online. Some believed the witness had been silenced. Others feared there were more people in danger. Additional security was brought in for the remaining witnesses, and the court temporarily recessed for 3 days to allow for an internal review of safety protocols. Prosecutors insisted the trial must go on, and when it resumed, they revealed that the deceased witness had left behind one last piece of evidence, a sealed envelope mailed to his attorney 2 days before his death. The envelope contained handwritten notes and copies of digital files, including financial ledgers and internal memos that prosecutors claimed further solidified their case. There were references to undisclosed payments to private investigators, a list of individuals paid to remain silent, and what appeared to be a blueprint for an escape plan should legal troubles ever reach this level. One memo even contained instructions on how to disable tracking systems on luxury vehicles and aircraft. The prosecution presented these materials to the jury as the voice of a man who knew he might not live to testify. The defense attempted to discredit the envelope, suggesting it was planted or fabricated. But forensic analysis confirmed the handwriting, and metadata on the files matched the house manager's personal laptop, which had also been recovered. This posthumous testimony became one of the most compelling moments in the trial. It reignited public interest and added a new level of gravity to the proceedings. The narrative was no longer just about power and manipulation, it now included the possibility of violence used to protect secrets. In the courtroom, jurors grew more withdrawn, their expressions increasingly grim. The tragic loss of a witness became a symbol of how dangerous the truth might be. And as the trial moved closer to closing arguments, a quiet understanding settled over the room. Someone had died trying to bring this story into the light, and now it was up to the court to decide what to do with the truth he left behind. After 6 intense weeks, the trial reached its final phase. Closing arguments from both sides marked the last attempt to sway the jury. The prosecution painted a picture of a man who had operated behind a carefully curated image, using power, money, and fear to control those around him. They reminded the jury of the videos, the recordings, the testimonies, and the posthumous documents. The assistant who destroyed evidence, the producer who watched careers collapse, the house manager who died under suspicious circumstances, they were all pieces of a larger puzzle. A puzzle that, once complete, revealed a deeply disturbing portrait. The defense countered by claiming the entire case was built on resentment and exaggeration. They argued that fame made Diddy a target and that former employees had turned on him in hopes of immunity or public attention. They questioned the timing of the testimonies, the interpretation of the evidence, and the motives behind the government's case. To them, there was no conspiracy, just a high-profile celebrity caught in a media storm. But despite their efforts, their arguments felt increasingly thin compared to the mountain of evidence presented over the past month. The jury retired for deliberation. As the days stretched on, the media waited anxiously outside, reporting on every minor update. 4 days passed with no decision. On the 5th, the jury announced they had reached a verdict. The nation watched live as the court reconvened and the foreperson stepped forward. Diddy stood still as the judge asked for the findings. The jury declared him guilty on multiple counts: racketeering, obstruction of justice, witness intimidation, and conspiracy to commit human trafficking. The courtroom remained silent, the verdict sinking in slowly. Sentencing was scheduled for the following month, but the immediate consequences were swift. Brands that once partnered with Diddy cut ties overnight. Radio stations pulled his music. Award nominations were revoked, and streaming platforms began to remove curated playlists bearing his name. His business empire, once a symbol of success, started to unravel. Stocks plummeted, lawsuits piled up, and former allies distanced themselves with carefully worded statements. The man who had once stood at the center of American pop culture now faced the possibility of spending the rest of his life behind bars. The trial didn't just affect Diddy, it opened doors to broader investigations. Other names mentioned during the proceedings were now being quietly looked into. The music industry, long criticized for turning a blind eye to abuse and corruption, found itself under intense scrutiny. Government agencies began reevaluating policies around whistleblower protection, especially for those working in powerful, insular industries. What had started as a criminal trial became a cultural reckoning. Public reaction was mixed. Some mourned the fall of a legend, others saw it as long overdue justice. But regardless of opinion, one fact remained: a powerful man had finally been held accountable in a court of law. And for many, especially those who had stayed silent for years, that accountability meant the beginning of something bigger, a moment when truth finally pierced the silence.